The bases dropped on a new week of Soccer Down here. I'm Jason Longshore, John Nelson here as well. And John, we could go into El Tráfico and probably talk for about an hour straight. It was just that ridiculous. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get into all of your reactions from that, from the rest of the rivalry week shenanigans around Major League Soccer. But we're going to start with Atlanta Friday night, 1-0 win in Orlando, remain unbeaten against Orlando City. This was a more difficult result than we've seen in that building before, and honestly maybe in the series outside of the two draws in 2017. Orlando brought it. They just didn't bring enough.
And that's probably, that's the best way that I can think of it. We've known that this team is better. There's still stuff there that they've got to work on, but it's moments like what we saw on Friday where teams have to grind out results and better teams find ways to win. And I think that this was just a case, once again, of Atlanta being the better side, finding ways, and they come in different ways, different times. So this, to me, was looking at it from the perspective of, okay, we know that it's going to be different. We know that there are flashes from Orlando, but Atlanta just ends up finding ways to win in the end, and it was Joseph Martinez. And if you haven't seen the video that was put out by the team having to do with the nonstop all access, there was a certain call that seemed appropriate once again.
You know, I probably have that here in just a second as well. I know a lot of people have been looking for the full-time report. It is, it's been a challenge this weekend with the radio station because of power outages and work being done at Colony Square. It was a battle to make sure the game got on the air in a normal way. It was actually broadcast out of a different building than normal, which is not easy to do in the radio world. But the engineers and our producer, Dylan Matthews, pulled it off and got things taken care of. But that's been a bit of an issue getting that up. I'm not sure if that's up yet or not. I'll double check. If not, it should be this morning. But let's hear those clips from the match in Orlando on Friday night. Pity Martinez had Atlanta's best chance of the first half and just missed it wide.
LGP all the way into the box now. Here's LGP on a run to the penalty spot. He's bumped off the ball. Pity gets on it. Shoots! Just misses wide of the near post. Pogba sends this down the middle to Pity.
And now Joseph.
It's pushed, but it rolls to Barco, who sends it through to Joseph. Advantage Atlanta United. In the middle to Barco, coming straight down the middle, top of the arc. Back to Joseph. Shot! Score! Daddy's home! And Atlanta United breaks through in the 60th minute.
Daddy's home is what Mike Conti said. I tried not to laugh. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty perfect. It's a brilliant break, and Pitty's involved in it as well at the beginning where he plays the ball in to Barco, takes a hit, referee plays advantage. Barco and Joseph, just a little two-man game, very simple. The run from Barco off the ball was great. He kept the play alive, kept pulling defenders with him, and then when he gets the ball back from Joseph, he pulls the defenders to him to give Joseph the opening for a spectacular shot that we've seen him bury so many times.
And it's just sometimes, I look at Barco and PT and Joseph and all of the guys that make up what we see, and they're just, it's the most brilliant things, and there's a smile that's attached, there's the shaking of your head and the laughter that's attached, and they make the most difficult things look easy. And when you're a professional at this level, I guess that's how things are supposed to look. But there's a certain sense of pride that's attached. And for me, you just kind of sit there and you go, yep, those are those kind of moments that happen. And like I said, it takes different kinds of ways to win games that you should. And sometimes it's the simplest thing. Sometimes it's true artistry that's at play, and sometimes it's a combination of both. So no, it was when you look at it from a bunch of different angles, it's just an absolute piece of beauty that Joseph puts in the back of the net. And as you're looking at updates scrolling across from wherever you were, and then all of a sudden the score changes, and you sit there and you see it's Joseph, and you sit there and you go, "Yep," and you just check it off one more time. But no, it's pretty to watch sometimes.
Orlando had chances afterwards. They didn't roll over after Joseph's goal. Here's one of those.
Another try by Mueller out of the near corner. Up to the ball, strikes it, front post again. It gets through to the back post, and it bounces wide. An out-of-goal kick with Uwe Roussel right there.
Roussel had chances. Asquez had a bunch of chances earlier. Orlando made it difficult for Atlanta, but they couldn't find the breakthrough. Tito Villalba came on late, nearly had a goal to put it away.
Now Miram at the halfway line is able to turn around Kyle Smith and come forward straight down the middle. Miram into the attacking third to Tito, top of the box, dribbles in. Tito with a shot, just wide of the near post.
Barco had near misses. Pitti had near misses. Joseph had more near misses than the goal. Tito had a near miss. Atlanta had chances too. There were a lot of chances in this game back and forth, but it's Atlanta who ends up seeing it out at the final whistle.
And here's Rowe, the keeper, strikes it, going to send it into the box, and Miles Robinson heads it forward, but not out. It's sent back by Miller to the top of the 18, Sani. It rolls to the far side, and now here's Uwe Roussel with the cross right to Gressel, shanks the clear. Hyman is going to dump it out. Full time! The wall has crumbled again! Atlanta United wins again in Orlando and maintains control of the Eastern Conference.
It's a big win. It's one of those that good teams have in seasons where they're not 100%, they're not sharp, they're not at their best, tired, heavy legs, conditions I think definitely played a factor in this one in terms of the humidity, and it was just a thick surface. It was a thick air around the stadium. It just, everything felt a little slower because of all that. But you find a way through, and you find a way to deal. Joseph with the goal. We've talked about Joseph scoring against Orlando a bunch. He's got 7 in his career. But the clean sheet's number 13 on the year for Atlanta United, and Brad Gazan has all of them. Brad is now 3 clean sheets away from tying a record that has been held by Tony Meola since the year 2000 with the Kansas City Wizards, where he basically carried them to an MLS Cup championship. He had 16 clean sheets on the year. That side of it, I think, gets lost in the shuffle a little bit when we talk about Atlanta United. Defensively, you're just not going to find many goals against this team on a regular week.
No, and I think that you phrased it pretty well. So I think that we all look at the shiny objects up front with folks like Joseph and PT and Barco and what we see offensively and everything to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think that to a degree, I mean, you sit there and you turn your head and you go, how many clean sheets? But that's just because of what the defense that has been structured with Frank DeBoer and the guys, and just Brad had 5 saves on the night, and I think it does get lost in the shuffle. And I'm not going to say that it's underappreciated, because I think that we've seen a tremendous amount of respect for Brad Gazan and that back line. But yeah, I think it does kind of get lost in and around all the shiny objects that we see on a weekly basis, because last time I checked, if the other team doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, you've got at least 1 point out of the deal, and if you score 1 yourself, it's 3. So it's just absolutely workmanlike stuff that you see. And I don't want to necessarily go that we take it for granted because we're focused on the offense so much. But yeah, I think that it does kind of get put toward the back of the conversations when it comes to just how good Brad Gazan is in net and how good the defense is that has been built.
I think Atlanta United's defense has been underappreciated from day one. I think it was good before. I think it's found a whole nother level this year. And a lot of that is Frank DeBoer and what he's brought to the table. A lot of that is the development of Miles Robinson, because it just gives you a different type of presence in the back. You know, Michael Parker is such a great organizer in the past, so good at making sure the back line was together. But if things fell apart, you didn't have that just pure speed and, in other cases, that pure 1v1 defending ability that Miles Robinson brings to the table. He was our man of the match on Friday night because he led the team in pretty much every defensive category, did pass the ball well on top of that. He had 10 clearances. Robinson just was seemingly everywhere, blocked 3 shots. Those types of performances take what was a very good defense that never got talked about to a whole nother level this year, a level that, frankly, very few teams have been at in Major League Soccer history. And when you have that, and you have the quality of a Joseph Martinez, and you have the game-breaking ability of an Ezequiel Barco and a Pity Martinez, you have a lot of confidence stepping onto the field at all times. Even on a night like this one in Orlando where it's not quite clicking early, you don't have that strong first step, you don't have that 100% sharpness, but you have that confidence that, you know what, we're not going to give up any cheap goals. And on the flip side, all it takes is one moment of magic, and Joseph can give us that lead. And a lot of times that magic is going to come from Barquito or Pity. So you've got a lot of things to fall back on a regular basis. It's a nice place to be. And I think this team has gotten over the hump where it was questioning, where it was. It was questioning the best way forward. It was questioning who they are and how they play. And now it's all kind of melded together. Not all that different than what it was in the past, but with a few tweaks here and there to be even better than they've been in the past, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so then let me ask this question this way. And my phrasing to be correct here. How much more of an upside does this defense have, knowing the improvements that we've seen and the individuals that have been put in it, and mentioning Miles and his growth over the last year plus? How much more of an up curve does this defense have, do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much more of an up curve it has. I mean, it's pretty ridiculously good right now. Don't get greedy or anything. I think what it shows you is that you're not going to have to go into the postseason and get defensive in your style of play. You're not going to have to go into big games late in the season and say, you know what, we can't defend in the way that we normally do. We need to reinforce that. And that's what happened last year. I don't see that happening this year. I think the defense has been good enough to where you're able to commit numbers forward. You're able to play 2 converted wingers at wing back. You're able to, at times, play 2 forwards underneath Joseph Martinez and essentially turn it into a 3-4-3 with 2 central midfielders holding things down in the middle. You're able to do all of that. And that's because of how good this defense is. It's how good Brad Kazan is at organizing. And when you do need to reinforce a little bit, you can turn to a Jeff Lorenowitz to come in and sit in front of the back 3 just a little bit more, and at times drop in and help when needed, drop a little deeper. You've got players who can make those adjustments on the fly. And I always go back to something that Frank DeBoer said earlier this year about he wants this team to be comfortable and just consistent enough in the way that they're going to play to where when they see these things on the field and they see that, hey, they've added another attacker, we're going to have to drop one more. You have players like Jeff Lorenowitz and Darlington Nagbe and others who read the game so well that they're able to adjust their positioning on the field on the fly, not have to burn a substitution, but still be secure. Because the other side of it is this, and And this is what was interesting about all of the back and forth about, are we attacking? Are we defending? Are we doing too much of this? Are we doing too much of that? Now that I think the confidence is back, you have it both ways. You have the confidence that, yes, we're good enough defensively to be able to allow for another player to go forward or play a Justin Merrim as a wingback, which, no one thought he could handle defensively, and he has, and he's been outstanding. Also, you have the confidence on the other side that, what? We only need one or two chances. We only need a couple of shots on goal because we're going to score. Because you have the best striker in league history over a 3-year period in Joseph Martinez. So you've got confidence on both sides of the ball right now that can carry you a long, long way. And that's where Atlanta United is at the moment, in my opinion.
Teams, and I'll go ahead and say championship teams, find different ways to win in different situations. And you mentioned thickness. It just the vibe with the conditions and being a little slow and just kind of slogging through. There are times when teams who are winners of championships, teams that put themselves above the board of everybody else, find different ways to win. Sometimes it's a shootout. Sometimes it's a grinder. This one, safe to say, you were there, and those of us who watched in one manner, way, shape, or form, safe to say that this one was an absolute grinder that we saw?
I mean, not really. I don't know if I'd call it that. An absolute grinder to me would be 5 shots both ways, and it's all defense. I mean, no, it wasn't that. It was just, it was thick and sluggish, because of the conditions, because of the amount of games, because of just everything that's piled up. Yeah, it was a team that wasn't 100% sharp, and playing a team at home that had a ton of motivation. I mean, a grinder to me is a negative. It wasn't that. This game was open. This game had a lot of chances both ways, had a ton of shots. I mean, Atlanta did create 10 chances, and on the road, that'll put you among the best in the league. Orlando just created more. But Orlando also settled for a lot of bad chances, in my opinion. When you get back to it and you look at their 21 shots, 10 of them were from outside the 18, and it felt like a lot of those were wasted when they could have done more. They never looked sure of themselves in the final third, whereas Atlanta always did. A grinder to me is a negative term in terms of just it's kind of a bad game. I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't say Atlanta played poorly at all. Orlando just played really well. No. Yeah. No, but that's what a grinder means. Is like you're not playing well. Atlanta played well. They just didn't play their 100% best because tough conditions and a good opponent and a motivated opponent. But they found a way. That's what good teams do.
Right. And that was in a very... that's been basically my point, is that championship teams find ways to win, and every way isn't always going to be the same. And this one was it just came across as with conditions and thick and all that kind of stuff. That was why I used the word grinder. I wasn't using it as a negative.
Yeah, but it is a negative. That's the thing, is like a grinder would be the type of performance that you see out of, and I'm trying to think of a good team to compare it to. A grinder would be what Newcastle did. No, a grinder would be what Newcastle did yesterday. That's a grinder. There's like nothing redeeming about Newcastle's performance or quality of play or attack or any of that. They grinded because they defended and they played a 5-4-1. They got a result. That's a grinder. What Atlanta did was not that. It just wasn't as good as Atlanta has been. Still a win, though, and that's the important part. Sometimes we can get hung up on those types of things. A win's a win. 3 points is 3 points. You didn't lack for chances. You gave up too many, but you also limited, I think, the good chances out of all of what Orlando had. I think their XG was 2. If I'm not mistaken, it might not have even been that high. They didn't have a gigantic advantage in XG. We'll get those numbers for you in a second. We'll get into other numbers as you want to as we go this morning. But It's 3 points, and it's 3 points against whatever term you want to call it, little R rivalry, big R rivalry, air quotes rivalry, whatever. It's 3 points in a game that has a little extra to it. And you're going to take that, and you're going to rest, and you're going to get ready for a big game tomorrow with Minnesota United coming to town. In another one where you've got to try to lift your level a bit in a cup final in front of your fans, which will help you a lot. But you've got to find more energy than you had in Central Florida on Friday. And that's the part that you could call a grinding effort, because you didn't have all of your energy, didn't have all of your sharpness. They got through it. They got the result. They bring those points back home, and now they get ready for a cup final that you're facing another incredibly motivated opponent in the biggest game in their club's history. They're bringing a bunch of fans down here for it. It's going to be a fun atmosphere tomorrow night at the Benz, and it's another opportunity for Atlanta to lift a trophy in front of their fans. Let's take a break. We'll get into the Overreaction Monday takes on Twitter right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, August 26th edition. It's an Overreaction Monday. Atlanta 1, Orlando City 0 from Friday night. All kinds of other action from around the league we'll get into this morning as well. El Trafico kept a lot of people up last night, and it delivered on every single bit of hype that it had. It was a fun, stupid, crazy, definitely not a grinder there.
No.
All kinds of bonkers things happening in the first 15 minutes. It finishes 3-3. LAFC still can't find a win over the LA Galaxy. Carlos Vela came off with a hamstring injury, not happy about it.
No.
That was a little surprising. I totally understand from Bob Bradley's perspective. I don't know. Well, of course. I mean, yes, you're definitely thinking long term. If you're thinking about sacrificing your best player in a game in August because it's a game against your crosstown rivals when you're trying to win every trophy in front of you, yeah, you're not doing your job as a manager. But that kind of reaction, that was big. Looked like it was all okay pretty soon afterwards. But yeah, you don't normally see that out of Carlos Vela. I thought the Galaxy were going to win it late. Zlatan with a really good chance late in the match when he just went up and won a long ball out of the back by himself, and it falls to him pretty nicely, and he missed barely wide of the post. El Clasico delivered. I think other matches delivered on the weekend. There were some duds mixed in as well. We'll get into all of those as we go, but it's time for your topics, your questions, your comments on an Overreaction Monday on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Where you want to start, John?
Daniel Price, focusing on the Orlando game. It's a shame Miriam didn't score. Joseph at the crossbar. How was that kick to Gressel not even looked at? And he's got other points. I'll just stop right there.
The kick to Gressel, I mean, it's not a kick. Nani's going up with a high boot. It's a high boot. I think it was the right call. I don't have a problem with not going red there. It was a yellow, correct? Or was it not even a yellow? If it wasn't a yellow, then I have an issue. But if it was a yellow, then that's fine with me.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Only two disciplinaries were LGP in the 36th and Gressel at 90+3 for unsporting behavior.
Okay, well, then that's a problem. I couldn't tell from where I was, and this is where it gets a little tricky in terms of checks, and I'll walk you through the way that I could see it from where I was. We were facing it, of course, up high and on the other side of the field from where it happened. I couldn't completely tell if there was contact in it. I mean, you see Gressel, duck his head away. He didn't go down. I didn't know if there was contact. It's definitely a high boot, dangerous play. You could go yellow there, and I think you probably should, but you can't review anything for a yellow, and I don't think it met the threshold of a red card review. That would be the only thing you could be reviewing that for. That's where a referee needs help from his AR, who, if I'm not mistaken, would have been behind Gressel. I'm not sure how much he could have seen of if there was contact or not. It's early in a game that is going to have some extra spice to it, too. You don't want to throw unnecessary cards. I thought Nima Sagafi was really good. If we're going to look for things to ding this referee in this game, well, man, we're going to be dinging referees on every game. I thought this was one of the better refereed games of the year, to be honest. I'm not... Outside of that, could have been a yellow to me. I'm not up in arms about it.
Then Daniel has other thoughts from around the league. He says, first off, Orlando still leaves me with questions. I think they can make a playoff run, but things are still looking bleak.
I wouldn't say
when it comes
bleak. Mauricio Pereira is a good player. He definitely lives up to the billing. You got to get him. You just got to play him at this point and play him as much as he can in every game. They've got to figure out the situation up top. I said it coming into this. I think they should play Benji Michel up top. I think their best team is Michel as the forward, Nani and Mueller on either side of Pereira. And then it's going to depend. I thought Asquez was good. Orlando fans were killing Carlos Asquez. Because he didn't score. Well, he's a holding midfielder. He was making those runs because they were available. There's one that I thought he should have had a shot instead of he played a back heel back that created a good chance, but I thought he had a good shot himself. You got to make some questions in the midfield between Asquez, between Rosell, between Sebastian Mendez, who I like a lot. I think it's 2 guys for 3 guys for 2 spots. And then out wide, you've just got to get Juan and Joao Moutinho back. Kamal Miller was pretty good on Julian Gressel. Gressel didn't really have as much of an impact here as he usually does. And Kyle Smith wasn't great against Justin Merrim. He didn't shut him down, but he didn't get just consistently beaten either. They got enough out of their outside backs. And their center backs, Johnson and Sané, are good. When they get Moutinho and they get Juan and Pereira gets going, they're a good team. Does that happen fast enough for them to get into the playoffs this year? That I don't know. But yeah, I don't think there's a bunch of issues with Orlando at all. I think they're pretty close.
Now, my question for the morning: do you want to stick with Atlanta Orlando stuff
Nah, I don't
first?
care. Let's just bounce around.
All right. Point 2 from Daniel. DC's in a free fall. They just can't seem to get anything going with how close the rest of the conference is. Do we see DC not even making it?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I don't know what's going on in that locker room, but just the way that you see this team play on the field, you have to have questions. You have to wonder what's going on. I mean, we've talked about it all year with Luciano Acosta. This whole thing has dragged on since the deal with PSG fell apart at the last minute. And Acosta hasn't looked like Acosta all year, and I think that's a prime reason why. You haven't been able to sign him to a new deal. His contract's up. He's just unsettled. So that part, you're not getting anything out of that. The Wayne Rooney stuff, it's happened. I guess there's rumors of more things happening now, if you believe it. I don't know.
Yep. From the Mirror in Vancouver, take your source.
The Mirror in Vancouver
Daily Mirror.
is, I mean...
Well, no, the Daily Mirror, Daily Mirror UK with a story from Vancouver. Sorry.
Okay, that's a little different. Is the Mirror a complete and utter tabloid?
From everything I've remembered, yeah.
Okay. So then we'll leave it at this. You have tabloid reports about Wayne Rooney in Vancouver having a night out with the lads, and his wife Colleen not being happy. Well, reportedly, this is all reportedly.
Yes.
This is all allegedly.
Yes, this is tabloid alleged.
It all feeds back into a lot of the conversations about one of the major reasons why Wayne Rooney wants to go back to England. And it's not just to get his coaching career started. So if that's an issue, if that's it, that's it. My question would be, why did he go to Vancouver? Oh, this was before. So this is an older report. This is just coming out much later. Okay, gotcha. Add that up, add the red card up, which was bad. I don't know if you're going to get anything out of Rooney the rest of the way. So you're going to be relying on Ola Kamara, which, hey, scored a golazo so far. Can he continue to do that? I don't know. You're going to be relying on Lucas Rodriguez to step up a little bit more. You're going to be relying on Leonardo Jara, Joseph Mora, your wing backs to really give you a lot. And you're going to be relying on Bill Hamid to stand on his head. You know, you're kind of where you've generally always been with this team, asking players to play a little bit above their head and asking Bill Hamid to bail you out. And whoever's in charge of 2020 for DC United has to be making some big decisions when it comes to Bill Hamid's loan is up, Acosta's contract is up, Rooney's gone, Lucas Rodriguez's loan, you're going to have a decision to make. I think Leonardo Jara is on a loan. You've got a lot of players that you're going to have to make quick decisions on. And is it a new, relaunch for DC United again? Or do you find a way to keep some of this and build upon it? I don't know. But they've got a lot of issues at the moment.
Then part of the other questions that Daniel has from the weekend. Why did they replace Connor Casey? I thought he was doing a good enough job with what he was given in Colorado.
Because Robin Fraser has more experience, and he's a Colorado soccer legend. So that's why. I mean, Connor Casey's done well, and I'll be curious to see what's next for Connor Casey, but I guess they'd made the decision that he wasn't going to be the long-term guy. So that's where you're at. Fraser's a good hire. I don't think Fraser's a bad hire by any stretch. A lot of people have been clamoring for Robin Fraser to get hired somewhere. I wasn't impressed with his time at Chivas USA, but I don't think anybody really impressed much of anyone at Chivas USA in those days. It was a really rough time when Fraser was there, and others followed him and others preceded him. He's done a great job as an assistant in multiple places now, and he was a big part of Toronto's treble 2017 season as an assistant to Greg Vanney. He won't be a problem. Would Connor Casey be better? It's a big reach. I mean, it's not like Connor Casey has really been lighting it on fire tactically. Casey's done a really good job of getting the most out of a group of players that was probably shell-shocked after the Anthony Hudson experience. So, can he progress from here? I think he can. And I think he's probably learned a lot. And I think Connor Casey would be a guy that would make a lot of sense either as an assistant with the right manager or in charge of a USL Championship or USL League One team that is a direct affiliate for an MLS team, where he's kind of grooming the next generation. I think at this stage in Casey's career, he is a man manager, not a tactician. And that can work, but I don't think that gets you everything it needs to in this league. I think you need some of that tactician either on your staff or you've got to add that to your game. I think Ben Olsen's a prime example. Olsen has become a better tactician over the years. He didn't have that at first. Would Casey have gotten there? We don't know. But I think Robin Fraser's a good hire. I don't think there's a problem with the hire.
Hara's loan from Boca Juniors at DC United ends at the end of the calendar year, according to Transfermarkt.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And there are a lot of questions having to do with El Tráfico. Folks wondering about LAFC in big games /playoffs, noticing that the highlight package was at over 15 minutes.
There was a lot of highlights.
And Nathan Pugh says he'd love to see a stats bomb wheel on Vela. Scores goals and sets up stuff, but on the TV, he looks so lazy off the ball. That could be a function of LAFC using midfielders as the engine room to do all his running for him. But what a lazy, talented player. # on par reaction Monday.
He's not lazy. And I mean, Nathan, you answered it in your own question. Like, a system being set up to maximize your ability, that doesn't mean the player's lazy. It's the same stuff we're back to when you talk about Pity Martinez and he's not defending. Well, you don't normally want a player like Pity Martinez or Carlos Vela running themselves out defending. And what Bob Bradley did was Bob Bradley said, you know what? We don't want you doing that as much. We want you to hang off. And it's pretty clear the way that they defend. So when they step up the press, Latif Blessing thrives in this role. Latif Blessing was a winger. Latif Blessing has become a central midfielder who can fulfill some of the aspects of being a winger, especially in the press, because Vela just drops off and hangs out. Blessing steps up. Mark Anthony Kaye steps up because he can cover every blade of grass on a field. Those guys step up and press. Vela hangs back. When LAFC wins possession, they play Vela immediately because he's wide open. It's a simple idea that they do really, really well. That's not Carlos Vela being lazy at all. That's Carlos Vela following the game plan. So it's just mentality, and that's something that the game doesn't have to be all 10 players on the field running around like chickens with their heads cut off. It's not how the game has to be. You can create structures to get the most out of players and limit them expending their energy in those ways. And that's what Bob Bradley's done. So, no, I'd never call Carlos Vela lazy. I think that's a completely unfair statement. But, yeah, they have created a system to get the most out of him to where all of his energy is focused on breaking down defenders and running at them and making them make decisions.
Nathan does follow with a disclaimer that he loads everything about El Tree, and yes, that includes Tata and Landon Donovan.
No, we talked about this ahead of the LAFC match. Like, you just can't look at every player and say, okay, that guy has to defend like player number 6 over here. It's just not realistic. What is it that they always say? And I don't know. I'm sure you get some of this with the high school football stuff, John, where, coaches fall back on the cliches and things.
Uh-huh.
But I think in soccer, and I think honestly just in sports today anyway, you're seeing more of this. Where people will tell you, coaches will tell you that, well, we treat everybody the same. Everybody has to do all the same thing. Everybody's the same. We treat everybody the exact same way.
Row the boat.
No, you don't. No, you don't. If you do, you're probably not going to win.
You're 5-5.
Yeah, you don't. You're average, below average, depending on what you have. You treat some players differently, and you give players different responsibilities to get the most out of them. You do. You have to. That's people. If you do that in a big office space, you're probably not going to get everyone, performing at their full potential. Some people you need to push. Some people you need to back off. Some people you need to give more responsibility to. Some people you need to limit responsibility. Keep it simple. People are different. That's okay. And I think in terms of the way that these guys play, they're different. Like, I would never want Lionel Messi, and look, Messi's not a guy who is known for his pressing ability. He does some, but you're not going to ask him to do the same things that you'd ask somebody else to do in your team. No, he's Lionel Messi. In this team, Carlos Vela's that guy. You're not going to ask him to do the same things that Mark Anthony Kaye or Latif Blessing are doing. And they're not going to ask him to do that because they know that when they win the ball, they can give it to him, and he's going to get them a goal, and he's going to win them games. Now, it's the same thing I said about the whole Pitti defending thing when it came up. In my opinion, when the player is performing, you're not even thinking about them defending. When they're performing and scoring goals and creating chances, you're not even thinking about the lack of defending. When they're not doing that, then, okay, that's when the defending stuff comes up. If Pity Martinez was scoring more and creating more, and again, he was involved in the goal here, he's got 7 assists, it's not as bleak as some would lead you to believe. But if he had 10 goals and 12 assists at this point, nobody would be talking about Pity defending. That's why nobody's really talking about Vela defending, because he's having one of the years for the ages, and Bob Bradley created a system from scratch, just like Tata Martino did for Miguel Almiron. Bradley created a system from scratch to get the most out of Carlos Vela, and he's doing exactly what the system asks him to do.
Chris Hutchison says, that ugly game in Orlando sure generated a big and beautiful 3 points. I hope that was a cathartic experience for the team, as we still have a very tough stretch of games ahead of us.
It wasn't as ugly as I think people have said. I mean, there were a lot of shots. There were a lot of chances. I mean, ugly in the sense that Orlando had a lot of shots. Yeah. I think you limited good shots, though, and that's the important part. No, I mean, when those two teams meet, I think it's a little hard for it to be ugly because there's just a little edge to it. It's Columbus-Cincinnati is not ugly, even though it's two teams that have been ugly for a lot of the season, because there's an edge to it. There's a little bit of a vibe to it. So I'll take that. Atlanta's played worse. They've played better. I don't know if Orlando's played a whole lot better, but they can play better. It wasn't that bad. Cathartic? No, I don't think it's that. I think it's more of just developing that confidence that, look, hey, we weren't at our best. We gave up too many shots. We need to be better, but we still got to win, and we got a clean sheet. We did everything we came down here to do. We just didn't quite do it in the way we thought we were going to. All right, you can learn from that, but I think you can also develop confidence from that. So let's take a quick break. We're going to get Jessica Sharman on the line in about 15 minutes. She'll join us at 10 o'clock to talk more about this game and anything else from the weekend as well. Keep getting your comments and questions in on Twitter at Soccer Down here on an Overreaction Monday. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Ray Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Final segment of hour number 1 on an Overreaction Monday. What's next on the Twitters?
Kevin from Charlotte, he says it was luck to get out with points in that game and to come away with 3 is even more amazing, although Joseph did have a chance to put it away. Hashtag Overreaction Monday, part 2. Who do we see in rotation for Tuesday's game? Heineman and Dion? ?
Let me start with the first part. I didn't see it in the same way that I think a lot of people did in terms of it took luck to come out of there with anything. Orlando's chances were not great. They had nearly half of their shots from outside the 18, and I don't know if they put any of those on target. They only put 5 on target out of 22. They only put 1 on target in the second half, and I think that was very late. So, yeah, I mean, again, Atlanta wasn't at their best. They didn't control the game as much as they should have, but I don't know if I'd go they were lucky to come out of there with anything. I thought it was looking like a draw at halftime. That's kind of where I fell. I didn't think it'd end up scoreless, but I thought maybe it's going to end up as a draw. But to say that Atlanta gets the 3 points, I don't think is craziness, because Orlando just didn't create a whole lot of quality, to be honest. Other side of it, rotation for Tuesday. Well, Eric Ermedi won't be 90 minutes fit. I think we know that much. So if you had Lorenowitz or Heineman come in there, wouldn't shock me. We're seeing reports this morning that everyone outside of Breck Shea is training with Atlanta United this morning ahead of the match. That means Franco Escobar's return to training. I don't know if that means he would return straight into the lineup. Is Florentin Pogba going to be ready to go again? Pogba, I thought, was shaky early, but really developed as the day went on in Orlando and got better. I think you have to wonder about Julian Gressel just because he's played a ton of minutes as of late. Is he going to be ready to go? What options do you have there? I kind of feel like, and I said it on our full-time report, I kind of feel like this game might be calling out for a surprise in the lineup to give a spark. You know, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a George Bello. I don't know if that's a Luis Fernando. I don't know if that's a Dion Pereira. But something just a little bit different, just to give a spark. Pereira would be one that I would definitely look at because his dribbling ability is outstanding. And at times where you can just create those 1v1s for Dion, because he's going to get them because teams have to deal with Joseph, with Pitti, with Barco, with Merrim if he's on the field. They have to commit numbers there. They can't commit 2 to Pereira. You're going to get 1v1s with him. And he's been one of the best in the league in terms of winning dribbling battles per 90 minutes. He's in the top 10. So you'd love to see him get those opportunities. Tito Villalba's another one. Where is he on fitness? Are you going to be able to get 60 minutes out of him? The thing that you have to think about, and we've talked about it throughout this tournament, these games could go 120. So you do get an additional substitution. If it goes to extra time, you get a fourth. But when you're thinking about lineups and 18s, you do have to consider that, because you have Tito unable to play 120. You have Remedi unable to play 120. You have Escobar unable to play 120. Those we know because of injury or recovery from injury. Bello, I don't think he could go 120 after playing 90 on Saturday. I think if he hadn't done that, it'd be a question. I still don't think he could. Not at this pace, but he'd be closer. I definitely don't think he's able to do that. So when you're thinking about that, that affects who starts, and that affects your 18 for sure. And you also only get 5 international players as well, which factors into it.
Chris Ashley, off of one of the players that you had as a part of your discussion. So do we think Gressel gets a suspension based on the late game antics, or will it be just a fine?
He could. If he got a suspension, it wouldn't blow my mind. It was really weird the way it went down on the field. Happens behind the play. Completely understand why it wasn't called in the run of play. Completely understand that. I don't think Sagafi could have seen it. Could he have reviewed it if the VAR had recommended an on-field review? Yeah, he could have, and he could have red-carded Julian Gressel right there. Possible. I don't know why that didn't happen, and I don't know why things were handled the way they were, because it was brought back for a foul after play had already went down the field, because Nani was on the ground holding his face after it happened. Whistle blows. Nani immediately jumps up and runs towards Sagafi to yell at him. I think that reaction is probably what made Sagafi think, well, it's not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. Yes, there's contact. Yes, I'm going to give a yellow. I don't know why he gave a foul. Like, it wasn't an advantage situation, you know what I mean? Like, it was...
Yeah.
That part was awkward, and maybe that got a little screwed up in the moment. But I think Nani's reaction actually took it away from being a red, because it minimized it by him immediately jumping up and yelling. And Nani and Sagafi had already had multiple conversations throughout the match, and that could have factored into it. If there's a suspension after the fact, I would not be surprised. It wouldn't affect Tuesday at all. It would only affect Saturday. And honestly, if it did, the thing you would hope is, if you know that's going to happen, then all right, you're going to play him on Tuesday, because he's not going to play on Saturday. If he rests on Saturday, well, he could use a rest anyway, and it's just a forced rest. It's not a big deal to me, honestly.
Lewis Martin with an on-par reaction. He says the Braves swept the Mets. The top NFL QB retires. Atlanta United beats Orlando City again. And all I want to talk about is LAFC and the Galaxy. The crowd at LAFC was epic. LAFC's raising the bar, and this is a good thing for all of MLS.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it shows what you can do. I mean, Atlanta's shown it. LAFC's showing it. I think Miami will show it. It was a special atmosphere last night. It just exploded off of your TV screen and out of the speakers on your TV. That's cool. You need that. It was a special atmosphere in Cincinnati, I think, as well. You had a really cool presentation for that one. Not the same in Frisco for Dallas and Houston, but that's a whole nother topic. You had it in other spots around the league, too. I think Yankee Stadium was a good atmosphere as well. I mean, it's not a great presentation on the field, but that's, again, a whole nother topic. These rivalry games and putting them in this spot on the calendar is good scheduling by Major League Soccer, because it gets a lot of attention. It gets you talking. You get conversations coming out of the Atlanta-Orlando match, the Portland-Seattle match, the Battle in New York, Hell is Real, El Tráfico. Not bad. That's 5 big games that we're talking about in pretty big ways on the weekend, or from the weekend. I'll take that.
Ike Man says we were lucky to get out of Orlando with 3 points after last night. I'm just hoping someone knocks LAFC out in the playoffs. Looking at you, LAG, so we can host a cup final again if we make it there. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, I mean, 3 points, sure. I thought it was headed for a point. I thought once we got to halftime it was headed for a point. But that's the quality that you have, and you've been there and you've done that, and you're just... Atlanta United now can get into that situation in that game and be more comfortable than they would have been 3 months ago and more comfortable than they would have been 12 months ago. Just, we've been here before. We're good. We've got the best goal scorer in league history on our side. We've got the best defense in the league this season on our side. Cool. We're going to be fine. We'll get through it. That's a different mentality than they've had in the past. And that's great because that's what gets you through some of those games.
Mike Man also says for tomorrow, hopefully first teams, this is to win a cup and book a spot in the hashtag CCL.
Oh, there's no question about that. There's no question about this being a second team lineup. No, that's not going to happen. That shouldn't even cross people's minds at this point because we saw first. See, Gwen agrees. She gets really riled up about that. She loves the Open
so does
Cup.
Trooper. Yes.
But it's this thing where I don't even know why it's still coming up. Because we saw first choice lineups against St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw a first choice lineup against St. Louis, you're going to see a first choice lineup in a cup final. Now, could there be some rotation? Sure, because you played a bunch of games, you've got a bunch of minutes under your belt. All those stuff applies, but it's going to be as first choice as you can field on the night. I don't think there's even a hint of a question about that.
And then Bartimus Prime says, it must suck to put so much time, energy, and smack talk into matches against the team twice in a month, lose 3-0 on aggregate, both at home. And his message to the team in Central Florida is sucks to suck Orlando. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Orlando. Just the Orlando-ness of it all. I don't.
There you go. That's the word.
I don't understand it.
The
what I do understand is this. Those fans have had to watch some bad soccer over the years. So to be a little jaded, I get that. They've been toxic, though, from early on. That part's been a little weird to me. But right now, to not see them out in full-blown numbers and to see the negativity that emerges throughout the day and night, that type of stuff, and the next day after the game, I get that. I understand it. They're better, though, and they will continue to be better. I think they've made the right decisions in terms of their roster. Now, do they think James O'Connor is the guy to get them completely over the hump? That's going to be the next question, and how they finish will probably answer it. I'll be keeping an eye on Orlando because I think they can make the playoffs. I don't know if they do. I think they can. Yeah. And we'll see how it comes together for them. Okay, we're up against it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get Jessica Sharman on the phone and talk to her about Atlanta, Orlando, and everything else from the weekend right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, August 26th, Overreaction Monday. Talking about Atlanta over Orlando again. I mean, we're running out of ways to describe Atlanta wins over Orlando because we've had pretty much every type of win in the series history. That's where this thing is at this point. But there's still some talking points coming out of it. Now we've got some help in going over those talking points. Jessica Sharman joins us now. Jess Talks Footy on Twitter. What's up, Jess?
Good morning. Enjoyed listening to the show so far, and looking forward to breaking down a little bit more because I think this was one of the closest games between the two of us, and the one that, for me, I agree with you, Jason. At halftime, I was telling people this game has 1-1 all over it. That was my prediction. I'm very glad we held on for the 1-0 win, though.
Yeah, it felt like a game where there were, it was open. It wasn't it wasn't open like El Tráfico open because it was open, but it still had a little bit of just a heaviness to it. I can't
sluggish.
describe. Yeah, it's weird for it to be open and sluggish at the same time, but this game somehow was.
It was almost like the sluggishness of the players. The defense looked kind of lax, so that created more chances rather than electricity in the front lines creating those chances.
That's a really good point because the air was so thick, the transitions were slow on the defensive side, and it just created space, and both teams tried to exploit it. What stood out to you on the Atlanta side in the performance?
For me, it was the grind, the grit, and the fact that they got a result out of it. We've heard the cliche multiple times that good teams, championship teams, winning teams get results no matter what. We see it in the Premier League all the time with teams like Man City. You grind out a result no matter what. And I say that, not the best timing, but you get a result in the worst case scenario, even when your back's against the wall. So I was happy that we did that. I think we created plenty of chances. Probably should have finished maybe a little better at times. What made me a bit nervous was, and I know you've mentioned, Jason, they weren't the best chances, but I have to say there were 3 or 4 chances for Orlando that if there had been a better finisher on the ball, they should have scored. There were a couple in front of goal where my heart was in my mouth where, against a stronger team, against an LAFC, against an LA Galaxy with a Zlatan or a Vela, you would put money on those chances being turned into goals. If you're an Orlando fan, you've got to wonder, can you buy a goal against Atlanta at this point on Friday evening? Because they were getting into positions that should have created goals, but the finishing was appalling, honestly.
Jess, as an athlete who's been in these situations before, can you break down what it's like for someone on a pitch who is in a situation where you're in this kind of a condition where you're having to find a way to win, and not everything is going to be there for you for whatever reason, but what's it like being out there on a pitch, trying to figure out a way to get a result, knowing that you're a better team, but you've got to find a way? What's that like?
I think it's all about mental toughness. At the end of the day, your physical power, you may know you're a better skill-based team or a better physical team, but it's about being mentally tough on the day Atlanta goes away from home. The Atlanta United fans did a fantastic job of probably making it feel almost like a home game at times. We heard them plenty on the broadcast, but it's about not getting frustrated. A few things weren't going Atlanta's way. A couple of, overhit passes when chances could have been created. I look at the one from Villalba when he steals it from the goal kick. I think it was Villalba, played it into Joseph, and Joseph just couldn't get on to that pass, and the goalkeeper made a good recovery from his error. At times like that, you have to react positively. It would be easy to think, oh no, things aren't going our way now. What if they get a goal? You have to mentally prepare yourself to go the full 90 minutes. And it was tough conditions out there. Obviously, I wasn't in Orlando, but I can guess from all the descriptions, it was muggy, it was hot, gross weather. And those are the ones where you really have to find an extra 10% somewhere in you that you didn't necessarily know you had. And I think that's what Atlanta United did. I look at Miles Robinson, and he just gets stronger every day. He's able to make those extra recovery runs where you're not sure he's going to make it. He puts his body on his line. And I agree with you all that he was definitely the player of the game. I've seen a few people single out Flo Pogba. I think he grew into the game. There are a few moments where he still makes me hold my breath. I'm not sure his body positioning is always correct, but he makes up with it with that grit and determination and that extra 10%. And I think that's why Atlanta United won the game. They found an extra 10% effort somewhere in them and held out that result. And even in the last play of the game, that long clearance at the end, all that pressure was relieved. And at the end of the day, it's worth it. And that's what these players see. The result is worth it. They were definitely sore on Saturday, probably still sore today. But it's about knowing what you can give and giving even more than you know that you can give, finding something that you didn't know you had and watching it on the TV. That's definitely what Atlanta United had this weekend.
The physical side of it is a huge element, but I think the mental side is as well. Mm-hmm. And this year especially, it's felt like Brad Guzan is taking more of a leadership role on, and maybe he didn't have to as much in the past with Michael Parkhurst playing as a center back in front of him. It was Parkhurst organizing the guys around him. But now you see Brad just constantly talking pregame, during the game, every stoppage. How important is it to have a goalkeeper like Guzan in these moments?
Again, I'm obviously biased as a goalkeeper myself, but it's the most important position on the field because they have eyes to see the game in a different way than anyone else can. They're behind the game. They can see the movement of the player. We have an advantage, and the defenders need that advantage from their goalkeeper. And I have seen him come a long way in his talking. I have seen him come a long way in his confidence. Perhaps it helps that oftentimes he has the captain's armband on now because you see him talk to the defenders. You see him hold them accountable. You know, we've seen him in the ear of several players before. I've seen him yell at Pogba, Dion Pereira once when he was on the field, and he's a leader. And because of his experience, obviously having played in the Premier League, having played for the national team, the players in front of him listen, and that's a great thing. I know I've been critical of him in the past. I do still think there are times when he doesn't perform as well as he could, but I think he was faultless, really, in the Orlando game. He was a fantastic leader from the back. His distribution was cleaner. And I think you're right, losing Parkhurst, as much as it's the right decision, he is getting older. I don't think he can keep up with the flow of the game and the way Atlanta wants to play. They did lose an on-field leader, and Guzan has done a fantastic job of slipping into that position as an on-field captain. And he needs to be there because as much as the defensive line is talented, it's still fairly youthful. When you've got someone like Miles Robinson in there, he still needs to grow into that leader as a centre-back. LGP, we know he's a bit of a hothead, a fantastic player, but not sure whether he all the time has the best communication from the back or the best approach to it. So I think Guzan adds that mellow effect most of the time, but he's always able to put on that hothead when he needs to and hold people accountable. And if I'm a defender, I want to play for a goalkeeper that lets me know where I need to be and is the eyes in the back of my head, so to say. And with a player like Pogba, again, I bring it up, but his positioning isn't always ideal. So he relies on Guzan to help him find where he needs to be on the field.
Even though we only saw 61 minutes out of Darlington Nagbe in the match in Orlando, some of us have kind of given him the moniker of being the silent assassin out there. And it is a quiet confidence. It's a quiet brilliance. and it's a very quiet approach to a game. And then when you kind of step back from it and you kind of look at things after the fact, you sit there and go, here is a damn good football player.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Darlington and how he is of that fulcrum in the middle of the pitch, what's it like for you to see someone like Darlington at work?
He's just brilliant. And I think you're right. There is a silence about him, a humbleness. He doesn't need all the praise. We talked about how with Atlanta United, you talked earlier on the show about how so much focus is on our front three and the sort of people that bring in the goals. And that's okay, because Darlington Nagbe doesn't need that praise. He does what he does week in, week out. He's consistent. He's strong on the ball. And for someone of his build, it always surprises me how he can shield the ball in such a fantastic way, use his body. And I feel like we've seen him grow into an Atlanta United shirt this season. Every game, he's doing more things, trying new moves. He's got a swagger about him, and it's brilliant. But like you say, I love the humbleness, the fact he kind of goes on the field, does what he does, steps off the field, and you don't really hear much more. He's a great player. He knows he's a great player. He obviously has confidence, but he doesn't need to tell everyone he's a great player. And for Atlanta United, that's a sort of role model, a fantastic player that you want on the field. And he brings confidence and stability to the team and allows potentially other midfielder players to take more risks on the ball, because you know Darlington's going to be there to recover and maintain possession 99% of the time.
What are you thinking lineup-wise tomorrow against Minnesota? You've had a lot of minutes. You've had a good bit of travel. You've had some intense matches over the last couple of weeks. Who do you think needs maybe a break on Tuesday?
I look at Gressel and think that I don't remember when he's off the field. You know, Gressel works hard, 90-plus minutes every game, and he has been playing well, but there's times where I think he looks fatigued. There's times lately where potentially there were balls that he would save that he doesn't necessarily save. The Nani slap at the end, he might be in for a little bit of trouble anyway, so maybe he'll get a forced rest in the future. But I would rest Gressel and maybe put in someone like Pereira. I think Dion Pereira is a cracking player with a lot of potential and just needs some minutes under his belt. But when you see him run with the ball, that's the pressure relieving Atlanta United sometimes needs. They can give him the ball and he'll run the full length of the field, keep possession, and his final product's not quite there yet. He doesn't get the final delivery in as much as we'd like to see. But you know what? Sometimes if you've had a tough game defending, if you have sort of been soaking up the pressure, you need an outlet. Sometimes you want Gazan to just play a quick pass to Pereira and off he goes on his horse down the field and relieve that pressure. So I'd like to see Pereira get some minutes. And you know, obviously we're going to be playing the strongest team we can. It's a cup final, and CONCACAF position is on the line. We won't see too many players rested, but it would be foolish of us not to, because we have such a chance in so many competitions. That this is a long season, and we want everyone there once it gets to playoffs as much as we do right now.
But at the same time, you know, Jess, we mentioned first choice lineups and everything, but the way that the roster has been constructed, and for the first time in recent memory, pretty much everybody short of Breck Shea is out on the practice pitch at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. You've got all of these guys that you can choose from and come at it from a bunch of different ways, and that to have that kind of a depth speaks well for schedule compression and multiple competitions and all this kind of stuff. So you have all of these different factors, but you're about as healthy as you've been coming into this match tomorrow.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Frank de Boer, because for once he has sort of a full squad to pick from. I'm sure he's been watching in practice, seeing who's playing well, and it speaks a lot for Atlanta United. We do have squad depth. We have, you know, a lot of strong players, and I wouldn't want to be in his position, because it's tough to pick a starting 11. It's tough to pick which subs you're even going to bring onto the field. Someone like Villalba came on and did pretty well. He offers something electric. He offers that pace and unpredictableness. You know, he needs some minutes, and I've read a couple of articles about all these players like Mo Adams that you bring in. You're wondering when these players are going to get minutes, and competition's a good thing. Look, every player wants to play 90 minutes on the field week in, week out, but having competition behind you is a fantastic thing for a team, because everyone knows they need to perform. It puts a bit of pressure, and these are professional athletes that need that pressure, need that competition, so as not to get too used to being in the starting lineup. And Frank de Boer has that power now where no one's spot on the field is guaranteed, bar Guzan, I would say. You can rotate a lot of players, and that's a great thing for us as fans and a great thing for a team as a whole. And like you say, with the amount of games that we have compressed into a short space of time, it's the right time for our roster to get deep.
I mean, Doug Robertson tweets it out this morning. This is the first time since, he says, the first day of training camp on January 15th that Atlanta United has had every player except for one in a training session that was available. You know, you don't have a bunch of guys on an injury list that can't train. You've got everybody in this case except for Breck Shea, who's out for the rest of the season after having surgery. It raises the level, and it's something that Pep Guardiola talks about a lot. You know, you win trophies, you win championships. Maybe some of that external motivation takes a step back because you've accomplished. But now when you've got somebody in training next to you day in, day out who's trying to take your spot, that keeps your level up.
Yeah, and even in practice, it raises the whole level of practice because now they can play 11 on 11 with two strong sides, putting that pressure on each other, and you're going to be looking behind you. A couple of players haven't really had to look behind their shoulder for too long because they haven't had that competition in the position. Now they do, so it's going to up their level psychologically. We talked about a mental game and the difference it makes. Speaking from experience, I played a year without a backup goalkeeper and kind of got complacent in my position. I knew that, you know, it didn't really matter what performance I had. I was going to play. You know, fast forward a year, 3 goalkeepers, and suddenly you knew you had to perform not only on the field, but in practice every single time because there were people that wanted to steal your spot. It's all friendly. It's all, you know, love your teammates. But at the end of the day, it's competition. And, you know, someone wants to take your starter jersey off your back of your shoulders.
At Mr. Fantastic on Twitter, Jess asks a question puts a question to the floor. Do you see the Galaxy or LAFC giving Atlanta possible issues if either were to compete for the Cup? And will Saturday's match against Philly be a key match to see if Atlanta's the favorite to win the East?
Oof. I think Philly's a big game. We've seen that they're a great team. They've had a few slip-ups lately. I definitely think they're beatable for Atlanta United. Hopefully we'll be playing on a high after winning the Open Cup. When it comes to the Galaxies, El Trafico, it showed what the two teams have. Obviously, they have quality. They have good teams, but I do think both teams sort of have that wonder player, either Zlatan or Vela. And if you can silence one of those players, you have a good chance of really, you know, taking the game to them. I'm not scared of either team. We've obviously competed against both of them. We didn't have to play against Zlatan. I think that would be a new challenge, having play if we do face Galaxy. But it'll be a tough game. But I would love an LAFC Atlanta United final because what a sort of advert that would be for MLS. We see the growth in MLS. We see that it's being shown on Sky Sports in England. People are paying attention to MLS across the world, which is a fairly new thing, I would say, from my experience. And what a great game that final would have potential to be should we make it there. And I'll knock on some wood right now because I said that a little bit too confidently about the final, but knock on wood. Philly's a good team, but I feel like we've really hit our rhythm right now. We've sort of found an identity. We have changed our formation. It's working wonders for us. And I do think that time has been very friendly for us. Patience has been very positive for us. And we're becoming a very strong side. And hopefully we can continue that for the rest of the season. But I truly feel like Atlanta United's found their identity a little bit more. And it's a team that everyone's enjoying watching, which is fantastic as a fan.
Yeah, I feel like LAFC and the Galaxy can definitely give Atlanta problems in a final. I mean, anytime you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the other side in a final, as LAFC saw last night, he shows up, crazy things can happen. He can score a goal out of nowhere. He's just that player. And LAFC, it's much more of a team effort. But yes, when you have a player like Carlos Vela, who has played the way he has this season, he's difficult to handle. And Atlanta saw that firsthand. I think Atlanta learned a lot from that match. And I do believe that Atlanta would be in a much better position to see LAFC for a second time around. Now, I don't know how much LAFC would be different. I think Atlanta would be. I think they'd be able to approach that game differently. Remember, that was also Mo Adams playing on the left side as a wingback early on instead of Justin Merrim, who has gained a lot of confidence playing in that role going forward. I think Atlanta would be a very different team in that matchup.
I agree. And I think they believe in themselves more. They found a sort of confident swagger that we haven't seen for a while back in them. And look, Mo Adams scored. He had a decent game, but Justin Merrim's really found a different stride, and he's been a joy to watch. And I'm not sure how LAFC would defend him. I think that LAFC have a lot going forwards, but we see them conceding quite a lot of goals. And having watched the highlights of last night's game, I think defensively they allowed a lot of space for Zlatan. And I don't think if we have the squad that if you leave people with space, they will score goals. We have quality in us, and it would be a great final, whatever way it is. But we just, we got to focus on one game at a time. We've got another final coming up tomorrow, and let's win that one first.
Nothing like busting out the athlete cliche there at the 20-minute mark, Jess. That was well done. The one game at a time bit.
I think I got a coach in me. I might be a coach one day with those cliches.
Yes, just you get your sound bites into 20 or 10 seconds, depending on how you are with Belichick and how you want to roll your sound bites, then you'll be fine. But I think that with LAFC, I think that the age at the back with folks like Harvey and Beitashour, you can call it experience, you can call it age, whatever, and the idea that LAFC played direct, and you also got to see what a guy like Pavone can do when you're adding him to the mix for an LA Galaxy and putting LAFC on their heels. Blessing was exposed at points. Zimmerman was exposed at points. So I think that this tape's going to get around when it comes to the rest of the teams in MLS, so they can look at LAFC.
Mm-hmm. I just think the quality of MLS is exciting right now, and potentially some would argue that we may have an easier route to the final, and with those two facing each other, that'll be a tough game for them to sort of recover from, whoever wins it, because we've seen a couple of El Traficos now, and they've both been a hard-fought, to the death battles.
What worries you about Minnesota coming in tomorrow?
I think that potentially that they're the underdog. A lot of the times underdogs come in with a different attitude. They've got nothing to lose, really. They can shake us up. They got a goalkeeper that's pretty good, Manoni. He played at Reading. Wasn't the best at Reading, but he's come into MLS and done pretty well. I think it's just about Atlanta getting off to a good start. We need to stay strong, have a good first 10 minutes and take the game to Minnesota. I think if we can get on the scoreboard early on, then we'll be just fine. Obviously, fatigue, we've mentioned that, but I would have said maybe if this game was happening a couple of weeks ago, fatigue would be a problem. But since, as you mentioned, we've got a full squad available for Pickens, that should be no issue for us. If we use our substitutions correctly, use our starting lineup correctly, I think we should go out and win. But it's that sort of complacent mindset that, we're expected to win as far as I'm concerned. And we need to go in and prove that there's a reason we're expected to win and not let the underdog. I think the longer Minnesota stays in the game, the more confidence they'll gain, and that's when they become a threat. If we get in early, pick up a goal in the first 15 minutes, then heads will drop, and then it's our game to take, and it should be a fun evening at the Bends.
So you can give us a first-hand scouting report of Vito Manone then. Prone to some errors from time to time?
Yep. He's the goalkeeper that makes the saves that you never expect him to, but concedes the sloppy ones. Likes to come get his hands on everything. And if we can get some good, tempting service into the box, if PT can put those corners right in that gap between the penalty spot and the goalkeeper area, he'll want to come get hands on that. And that's when we can capitalize from someone like Joseph. You never think you'd say it with his build, but someone like Joseph's aerial presence put in those challenges, because Manone likes to get his hands on the ball, likes to play it out the back. I think we can press high and put those challenges in. He was a good shot stopper at Reading, but didn't really have the footwork and had some iffy decision making. And Atlanta United likes to play those balls through that become very teasing for the goalkeeper, get them off their line. And I think that he may misjudge a couple, and that's where we'll have the opportunity to nip in on some of those one-on-ones and finish the ball.
Of course, a lot of folks look at Manone and Sunderland and know how he kind of stumbled through things, but it's good to Jason, I will admit, having Jess give us a scouting report on the keeper and his history coming into a big match. That's pretty clutch.
It's a bonus.
Yes, we call it a bonus. Juicebox Purveyors guys actually have numbers associated with the match already out.
Yeah, it's a cup final. They should. How big of an underdog is Minnesota in this one, according to the experts?
Plus 600.
That's bigger than I thought.
Atlanta United right now to win in 90 minutes, minus 223.
Wow.
Yeah, those are the numbers I was talking about. It's difficult not to let those numbers get to your heads, even as a fan base. And the crowd I think the players can sense the crowd more than we realize sometimes. So it's one of those things where we need to be patient, but we got to go out and get a goal early and step our mark on the game, because I truly believe that the longer Minnesota stays in the game, the more of a chance they'll have to hit us on the break. So it's all about, again, we said it at the start of my segment and we can say it towards the end, that it's all a mental game and we need to be mentally stronger than the other team.
As I'm sitting here trying to go through all of the other comments, Eichmann, he says, as far as rivalry week goes, it says rivalry wreck, but that's the beauty of the QWERTY typewriter. Rivalry week. Say that 10 times fast. Goodness. Eichmann believes the kids at FC Dallas made a statement. It would have been nice to get the clean sheet, though.
Oh, the Houston goal was amazing, though. If you've had a chance to see the Houston goal, that was some golazo, I'll say that. It was a good game. Yeah, they played some really pretty football. Dallas, it was a strong game, but I don't know, man. Houston, that's a sad one, because they have a lot of strong players in that team, but they just look lost on the pitch right now.
Yeah, I can't figure out Houston at this point, what they do next, because, I mean, obviously Mauro Manotas, Albert Ellis, not going to be here that much longer. Are they going to invest? And that's always been the issue for the Dynamo, is you've had some good pieces around you. You had a good manager in Wilmer Cabrera, obviously good and respected, because Montreal immediately snapped him up. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the Dynamo. They're a team that, along with DC going into 2020, you have to look at really closely as to what they're going to look like next season. It could be very different.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you talk about DC earlier, and I think Rooney departing and Rooney probably not contributing much anymore. You can see that their team dynamic has changed, and I think Houston will struggle without Manotas. Watching the game a little bit yesterday, he's sort of their main player that they rely on, and they have quality players. The guy that scored the goal, it was a cracking goal. They didn't give up to the end, but they're just leaking goals, and it's a bit concerning. And you say they've got a history of sort of that worrying investment, and it's going to take some real investment to replace players and also rebuild, because as teams get better, as teams are getting better players, they're bringing in players from Europe earlier. The MLS is becoming a league that is attracting quality. If you don't compete with that and bring in players, you're gonna really struggle. And as much as there's no relegation, no one wants to finish bottom of the league.
All right, as we finish up, I'm going to put you on the spot when you look around MLS. What are your conference finals going to be in the East and the West? Who do you think is playing off in a one game to go to MLS Cup in each conference?
Oh, God.
Happy Monday.
I don't know how I'm worried I'm going to get the bracket wrong, but I think, can I give you my two best teams from either side?
Yeah, that works. And that's who should get there by that point. I mean, the bracket will affect the matchups a little bit.
So I would say the two LAs, I think El Tráfico should be their final. And what a game that would be again. And that could work in Atlanta United's favor should we make it through, because hopefully they can exhaust each other out mentally and physically. And then we'll see how the game against Philly goes. But just based on some of the games they've watched, I think they've hit a stumble. They hit a stumble, but maybe potentially Philly is coming back from that stumble. I want to watch the game, obviously, and see how they play. But just based on what I've seen, I think Philly-Atlanta could be a good one, too.
I think NYC gets there.
Yeah.
You do?
Well,
their pitch just doesn't off. And their pitch.
That, too.
It doesn't count.
Sure.
I don't think it counts. I truly, they need to replace that field. And if when that changes, they'll see a difference, because you see a lot of teams go over there and struggle. And when they come over and play on a real people's soccer pitch, they don't seem quite as good.
Out west, I don't know. It could be anybody with LAFC. I mean, the Galaxy could be there. They've got to play the way they do against LAFC against everybody else, and that's been an issue for them. Seattle with a big win in Portland, maybe they're back. They had me worried for a while that they might miss out completely, and they still could. Real Salt Lake with a big win, that gets them into the mix in terms of the upper echelon of the Western Conference. I still think Portland has the quality to. They just haven't been consistent enough. Minnesota and San Jose are two teams that fly under the radar, but they could get there. Right now, today, if the playoffs started and you went into the bracket, and I think the two best teams going in are the two LA teams. I don't think the Galaxy will be in that mix by the end, and they're going to have to hope for matchups that work
suit
for
them.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think they're very
have,
limited.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. They seem to. I don't understand. I get the rivalry thing and boosting, but you'd think that they'd be able to raise their game every week, and it does seem like they're almost a completely different team when they play against LAFC in the games that I've watched, and they need to find that mindset week in, week out, and they can't rely on Zlatan's magic constantly, and that's what I sometimes have a concern with. You saw how poor they looked at Atlanta without Zlatan, and when you rely too much on one player, all it takes is for them to have an off day, or for them to pick up an injury, or for them to be scared of playing on turf, and then you're struggling.
Pavone's the wild card. If he gets fully integrated into this team, he has the ability to take them to another level, but he doesn't fix them defensively either. They're a bad team defensively.
Leaking goals.
Yeah, there's so much more left in the MLS season. We're going to have an international break coming up after next weekend, and then the stretch run from second week of September until decision day is going to be absolutely insane. Can't wait to see how all this shakes out. Make sure you're following Jess. Jess Talks Footy, IE, right?
The correct way of spelling it. FOOTI.
Oh, that's the correct way. Okay. I've seen footy with a Y. I don't know.
I checked. I actually checked with my dad. I was like, which one is looks better? And he was like, it's got to be IE.
Okay. IE in footy. Jess Talks Footy on Twitter. Jess, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys soon.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Overreaction Monday. All of the reactions. After Atlanta, yes. God, I always forget who it is. Hacksaw something?
Hacksaw Hamilton.
Lee
Hamilton. Hacksaw Hamilton.
There we go. Reaction. Is that good?
Yes, very good. Very nice. Former voice of the San Diego Chargers and a voice in WCW in their 3-man booth days.
There we go. Been practicing. All right. All the reactions, send them our way on Twitter at Soccer Down here. We'll get to those before we wrap up today. What's on the agenda, John?
Shiva wants to hear Jason describe the weather in Orlando at kickoff. The players were soaking wet 5 minutes into the game, and I really think the humidity got into them early. I was a little surprised with our strong lineup, but hey, we won and we needed the point.
Soupy, thick.
So you're saying it was thick?
Yeah, soupy's the one I keep coming back to. I mean, we opened the windows fairly late before we went on the air for the Five Stripes Countdown at 7:30. And it was one of those that it was just so weird because, I mean, the booth is air-conditioned. It was very nicely air-conditioned. It felt great. But it was so strange, and, I mean, I think people can relate to this, where, all right, you have the air-conditioned air coming in behind you, but you have this thick wall of humid air coming in front of you from the window, and it's just the weirdest sensation all night long. I mean,
kind of like
see. Go ahead.
I was just say kind of like when we were at the Fraction and we had the condensation in between the double pane window and we couldn't see anything.
Yes, that's what would have happened if we had a double pane window. Absolutely.
Yeah, because thick just comes to mind really when you're thinking about this time of year and doing something in the evening down there in Central Florida.
Yeah, it was heavy because it poured rain. It poured down in the afternoon, so we had a really early flight down to Orlando. Mike dubbed it the Disney Express because it was like the first flight out. It's all the kids on it going to Disney for the day. Got down there, grabbed something to eat, waited for rooms to be ready at the hotel. And when I got into the room, tried to sleep for a little bit, wasn't able to, rested, but you know, it's all good, ready to go. It's like, all right, I got to get something to eat. 'Cause you never know when you go to a stadium, like what's going to be available, if it's something you want, if you're going to have time. So I was like, okay, I'm all out of whack time-wise. I'm going to go grab something to eat. Start walking over. There's a pizza place nearby. Walk over that way. You start getting the big raindrops as I'm walking down the street. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm glad I'm almost there. I'm going to go ahead and just go there and eat. Because I had like an hour. I was like, I'll work on my notes. If I need to wait out rain, whatever, it's all good. Get there, order my couple slices of pizza, sit down, and it starts just pouring down rain for about 45 minutes or so. To the point that the unified teams were playing at this point in the afternoon, and they had to pull them off the field. There was so much rain and lightning in the vicinity. They did get to finish. But it rained off and on heavy for an hour to 90 minutes, about 3-4 hours before kickoff, which is just perfect to create this thick wall of soup, humidity. Ugh.
Yeah, that's about right. John Nason, ticket sales are slower than anticipated for a Cup final at the Benz tomorrow. Of all season ticket holder fan bases to not pick these, parentheses, cheap tickets, exclamation point. What's it going to take to raise the profile of the Open Cup in Atlanta and beyond? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
I mean, I hope there's some lessons being learned here. U.S. Soccer has been in charge of this, and this is not the first time that the ticket sales for the final have been just weird and difficult. I think it was awkward for people who were season ticket holders. There were some issues there. Tickets didn't go on sale to the general public until far later than they should have. Stuff like that, just no. Like that needs to be cleaned up. And I do think in a market like Atlanta, where there are a lot of people who, get their information from what we do on radio, and with us not carrying these games, I think it throws people off, and just the games not being widely available. It's ESPN Plus, and they've done an amazing job with lifting the level of this tournament as a whole. It's really important that they bought the rights to this tournament and put every game on, because that was never the case before. That's awesome. But I think they also weren't thinking big picture about, all right, this is a good step, but how can we raise the level of this tournament in local markets? Just to even things like, okay, if it's on ESPN Plus, how do bars and pubs and pub partners show it? And giving them the instructions on how to do it. I mean, we went to watch the Charleston game, and it was difficult for the bar to get the game on, and they couldn't get it on multiple TVs because they just couldn't have that set up, because they had no instruction from ESPN Plus or US Soccer about how to do that. Giving out a Q&A, an FAQ, a tutorial to bar partners, to pub partners, about how to show these games. Stuff like that. It has to be better going forward. I hope that there are some lessons learned from this. And yeah, I mean, I wish we could carry the game for sure. Obviously, I'm a little biased in that regard. But there are people who, when it's not on TV, when it's not on radio, when it's not like other normal games, they don't know how to look at this. And I think casual fans look at it and they're like, well, what is this? So we've been trying to tell the story and trying to make it clear, but it's not easy. And I do think it'll be a good crowd. I do think it'll be a very strong walk-up crowd. But it's been slower than it should be for a lot of those reasons.
Also, along those same lines, Chris Ashley is wondering if we've pinned down what the plans are for the Open Cup final. He's coming down from Greenville after work and is hoping for a tailgate show.
We'll have a tailgate show. I just don't know what time yet. We're still figuring out exactly what we're doing on radio tomorrow. We will be doing something. It won't be traditional because we can't broadcast the match. So that's not going to happen unless there is a last-minute reprieve that I'm not expecting. So we will be doing something. We just don't know exactly how it all looks yet. Once I know that, then I'll have a little bit better sense of tailgate show. What I'd love to do is, normally tailgate shows, we have to do them really early because I got to get into the building early. Since it's not a normal broadcast, I might be able to get in later to where we could do the tailgate show later, more like a 5 o'clock. I don't think we could go much further than that, but 5 o'clock is the time I'm shooting for, so that gives people time to get down there. So write that in pencil, but have the erasure ready. 5 o'clock is the targeted time.
And Lewis Martin has run the numbers, and he says as of an hour ago, there were 3,300 non-resale tickets for the Open Cup Mini still left in the club section and in the corners.
Okay. I mean, that's not bad. And I think they will go. I don't think those are... I think it's going to end up being a great crowd. But it's just been different and awkward and a learning process, I think, for U.S. Soccer. So hopefully they take some lessons from it.
Kefsey wants to know, was Walker the best / most terrifying center back to watch trying to dribble around the opponent's box this weekend?
Ooh, yeah. People were all excited when Zimmerman takes off on a dribbling run, and I'm like, oh my God, he's flailing at the ball, like just trying to keep it going. He did. He spun, and it worked, but it was not smooth. Not a part of his game that he thrives in just yet. I think he can do it. He's an interesting player because he's dangerous on set pieces. He's actually a really good goal scorer on set pieces when he's up. But those elements of attacking play, not Walker Zimmerman's strong suit. he's got to, in these games with Zlatan, he's got to figure out how to better shut him down. He's really struggled in these moments, and hopefully it's something he can learn from and get better at.
Eichmann on the Nani/Gressel kerfuffle. I think there could have been a little bit of a makeup no call. Both players hit each other in the face. Neither got reviewed and tossed. Gressel should have seen red. Nani could have gone either way, and then he used all of the symbols in the QWERTY keyboard to do the shrugged shoulders thing, and that's how he did his symbol since he didn't use an emoji. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Nice play-by-play there.
Thank you.
Maybe it's a bit of a makeup call. I think it's a combination of where it happened in the game. There's not a lot of time left. I don't think they wanted to go to a VAR situation or non-field review unless they absolutely had to. Nani's reaction after the whistle blew, sprinting down to yell at the referee, probably didn't help get that done any quicker. So I think it was done where Sagafi figured that it's not that serious. I can get away with this with a yellow card. We can finish this game out and get out of here, and that was the way to go. I really do think Nima Sagafi had as good of a game as we've seen as a referee in a long time. I thought he was excellent in managing the occasion here, because I'm of the opinion that games like this, rivalry games, games with extra heat, you don't call them the same way as you would just an average run-of-the-mill game. You can't. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 8-on-8 or 9-on-9, and nobody wants that. So you've got to have a little bit looser grip on the leash. You know, you've got to allow the game to play out a little bit and see where it's going to go. I thought Sagafi did a good job of that. And in the way this game was called, I think he got it right. I mean, screaming and yelling about, well, Gressel should have been red carded, he would have missed 30 seconds in the game, you know? Like, for Orlando fans, I've seen some of that. For Orlando City to actually, like, post the video of it. Okay, he would have missed the long set piece that you probably shouldn't have gotten anyway. I think that part was a mistake. But that's what he's going to miss. Big deal. It's not going to affect the match. He could get it retroactively. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. Nani instigated it. Gressel slapped the arm backwards. Gressel put himself in a spot where he could have been red carded and he could miss a game. These things happen in matches, you know? It's not that big of a deal, and I think the way it played out was probably the right way for it to play out.
Well, what is it that is it Dr. Joe when he does his public speaking and brings the rule book with him?
No, it was Geiger who did that.
Okay, so Geiger, when he takes the rule book with him, when he does all of his public speaking, he holds the rule book, and it's not a hard copy of it. It's a paperback, and he just kind of wiggles it. He says, "What does this do?" It's you know, it bends. It's flexible. So I think that when you have officials that take that kind of a tenet and apply it to larger matches, whether it's because of status or stature or rivalry, I think that you just take things into perspective and don't necessarily think of it as the rigid hardback copy that some folks may want it to be.
Just like you don't treat every player the same way, you don't referee every match the same way. Every match has its own personality, and I think the referees who frustrate players and coaches and fans the most are referees who don't feel the match. Because you have to. You have to call that match for that match. And that's the important thing. Like, over a long span of time, yeah, there's consistencies in the way things are called in a league. And it's been fascinating to see some of the discussion from England about VAR and the way games are called and the way they want to be called and all of that right now, because games in England are called differently than games in the United States. They're called differently than games in Germany or Spain or Italy. They're different, and it's treated differently. So I'm going to read a tweet from Derek Ray when you talk about VAR, and I'm sure we'll get into this some on Soccer Over There tonight from the Brew House from 6 to 8 p.m. You can join us. You can
Excellent
also
plug.
listen on the app, on the website, on Spreaker. But Derek Ray said, main difference between how VAR used in Germany versus England is regarding use of the screen. Premier League relying instead on judgment of VAR to instruct on-pitch ref, but reluctant to go against original decision. To me, the screen gives ref a chance to see what he didn't/couldn't see, and the ref still owns the verdict. And Derek says, note, the Bundesliga started its first season with the idea that the VAR room could make big decisions without ref going to screen, but they veered away from this after the first few months. Maybe partially because I'm used to it, but prefer the current German application of VAR. And this was a big discussion with the Tottenham-Newcastle match, which I thought was just a horrible call live to not give a penalty late. I have no idea how you justify not giving that penalty, but then everybody yelled about VAR, and VAR isn't the issue. It's the fact that the call is bad to begin with, and if, as Derek says, VAR is trying to instruct the on-pitch ref, you're not instructing. It was Mike Dean, right?
Yeah, it was Mike Dean.
You're not instructing Mike Dean to do anything different. Like, he's not going to listen. So, if he saw it and he had a good look at this, he saw it the whole way. We don't know the discussion now. He could have said, "Look, I got it. I saw it. I don't need to go look at anything. I'm good. I got that call the way I wanted to get that call." Then the VAR can say anything he wants to, and it doesn't matter. But I think it's just a bad call. It has nothing to do with video assistant referees. It's just a bad call. Should have been a penalty.
John Nason back to Open Cup and was going back and forth with Nick Alifi about it. But a possible solution from John is thinking that the Cup needs to get noticed. It needs to move to a weekend for the final.
I agree with that. That would be great. And if you have to move a league match to do it, then move a league match to do it.
I mean, in England they do it.
No, FA Cup is at the end of the season.
Well, no, I'm talking like not the FA, but the one that's the other one, the Carabao.
Yeah, but the League Cup's even more secondary. The FA Cup at the end of the season is perfect. I don't think you could do the Open Cup that way. Although, you maybe could, depending on how this thing grows with more smaller teams involved and more early rounds and things like that. The tricky element, and I want to see how U.S. Soccer deals with it over time, is the summer teams that rely on college players that have a very limited window in which to play their games. How much influence do they have on the way the tournament's structured? Also, would MLS agree to having, I guess, the semifinals of the tournament? You'd want them probably around this window right now, but then you wouldn't have the final until mid-November. So you'd have it like the week after MLS Cup. Would that be acceptable? I wouldn't have a problem with it. But would MLS fight that? Would that be awkward? Would that work here? I don't know. The League Cup in England, we don't have an equivalent for that, so it's a little hard to compare. But if you're going to have it in this type of calendar, I'm with you. I think moving it to a Saturday or Sunday, putting it on national TV, and moving the league matches that need to be moved to accommodate it, I would do that. But then if you look at it this way right now, you would be moving Atlanta and Philadelphia into a midweek where you don't really have a midweek. So you don't have a spot to put it because of the international break, unless you're going to make them play over the international break and play shorthanded. That's what's hard about it.
Daniel Price wants to know if you guys are going to run out of music for the full-time report, and are there repeats allowed?
I mean, there's repeats allowed. We try not to, but sometimes you have to. Some cities don't have a ton of options, so we kind of are a little more limited in our picks. And in some, like Orlando, there's just been a lot of these. So, all right, how do you manage it? We don't keep track. Like I don't have a running list, but we kind of have a feel for, okay, we've played this band before. Okay, we've played this song before. All right, we're going to go in a little bit different direction here. So that's just how it goes. It's loose because we don't think about it beforehand because we don't want to jinx anything.
Jorge B with a couple of points, with a point and a thought. Says he loves rivalry weekend, which is similar to the weekend of Clásicos in South America. Portland, Seattle was a fantastic atmosphere, and El Tráfico last night did not disappoint. I remember when PT was previously subbed out, the attention will focus on him and his reactions. Carlos Vela last night was clearly upset when he was subbed out, and he even threw the captain band in the ground, people's eyebrow with stroking chin emoji.
Yeah, and there was only one shot of angry Carlos Vela on the bench. He did calm down, and he was standing up, and they made a big point to praise him for standing up and I guess handing a water bottle over and maybe talking to somebody. That was a big deal. Reportedly, I saw on Twitter that he punched or kicked the chair in front of him on the bench. I didn't see that on the broadcast. I think we did see that in the Atlanta LAFC match. So
that is correct.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it was colorful metaphors as he was walking off toward the bench. The one cutaway of him on the bench, and then a second cutaway with ice on his hamstring. That was it.
Yep.
Eichmann, thoughts on the conversation today? Luck, more about Orlando's bad finishing. Open, our offense. Grind, our defense.
Okay. That's like a esoteric poem. I like it.
It's like a haiku.
No, it doesn't meet the haikus have rules.
It's like 4-5-4.
Yeah, haikus right? Have very strict rules, so it's not a haiku because it's not structured. Did you see what Zlatan had to say about Alan Chapman last night?
No, what did he say?
So, Greg Beecham, who writes for the Associated Press in Los Angeles, said, Zlatan does not care for referee Alan Chapman, and boy, does he have some direct things to say about it. Imagine the length of the suspension for an NBA player going off like this. And imagine that there won't be any suspension or probably any fine for Zlatan going off like this. This is what he said. He needs to go back to the drawing board and learn basic, because the way he talks, the way he acts, the way he does his things, there's no connecting him to the game. He felt the fans came here for him tonight, so he made it a game for himself. A game like that cannot be decided by the referee. The teams need to decide the game. This referee, I remember him from Portland when he said something stupid to me. Today he said something stupid to me. He needs to, I don't know, he needs to go back to the guy in charge and do basic stuff. This is me, I'm being honest. I get fouled, the guy says nothing. A little push, in quotes. After that, it influences my game. I cannot play free. I cannot play 100% because every time I touch somebody, it's like I'm sending them to the cemetery. What in the world is he talking about, first off? Because I did not have that impression of the way this game was called. I didn't think Alan Chapman was trying to make it about himself. I didn't think he was... I didn't get that impression at all. It was a difficult game to referee, and I remember John and Stu both saying, like, you know, hey, it's a tough one, and he's done a pretty good job with it. I didn't have any major issues with the way the game was called. Like, Zlatan at the end started barking because I think he was tired, as he told Katie Witham after the match, and because he couldn't get away from defenders. But I don't know what he's talking about.
No, I don't either. I have no idea, but that's a hell of a soundbite.
But it's saying nothing.
I know.
It's not a hell of a soundbite. I completely and utterly disagree. This is just... What's the soundbite?
I'm not saying there's any intrinsic value to it. I'm just saying that that's the kind of stuff that you run on the local news.
Sure, and look foolish. Like, I will talk about the way games are reffed, and we'll have those conversations a lot, and we have. We always will, because it's part of the game. It's always going to be discussed. We all know this. Go look at the Premier League from the weekend if you're looking for a comparison. But in this case, I don't even know what the complaints are, to be honest. Maybe there were a couple calls that went against him on 50-50 decisions where two players were both pushing. That's about as far as I can go with it.
Yeah.
And Zlatan doesn't help himself in getting calls because of this.
Nope.
So, I don't know. I feel like it is an extreme overreaction, and if you're going to complain, make sure you have your stuff lined up to complain in the right way.
Right. No, totally agree with you. Like I said, I'm not saying that his soundbite had any value. I'm just saying that that's what he is prone to do when he decides to pop off post-match.
No, but I mean, I think of a soundbite as like, oh, there's a great line in it. The only line in
this
it
is a rant that had no value.
One. The only line in it is the last one where I cannot play free. I cannot play 100% because every time I touch somebody, it's like I'm sending them to the cemetery. Which there's nothing that happened with that. Nobody took a dive.
Nope.
And he wasn't called that tight in the game. So it's a little silly in my book, but that's just Zlatan for you.
Mm-hmm. Couple more before we go. The Blue CATLian says, when it comes to Open Cup, wants to know if Ozzy is playing. I think this makes all the difference. Open Cup's a favorite of his, and he'll be tough. If there's no Ozzy, our chances are better.
Yeah, for sure. Doesn't make all the difference, but it's a big one. And he was questionable on Thursday. Haven't seen anything either way yet. I think Adrian Heath will try to keep that one under wraps as long as he can. I think they've probably tried to do everything possible to have him available from the start. They need him. Is he going to be able to give them, 120 minutes? Well, it's questionable, but can he start and lead this team in the early, difficult opening part to the match? They need him to, and they're going to have to try to find a way to get him on the field if possible.
Jim Lepp wants to know if there's a prediction for who fills the international slots tomorrow.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Jim Lepp wants a prediction for who fills the international slots tomorrow.
Let's see what's said after training first, because Escobar's the biggest question mark, and Remedi. I don't know if you have both in there because of neither being able to finish the game. So let's see what's said. Frank de Boer will be speaking to the media probably about any minute now. So we should get some insight from that this morning.
And I was close on the haiku. A haiku is 575, but that's the number of syllables that are allowed.
Yeah, I knew it was very strict. Like, you don't have any leeway in haiku rules, so.
And then Chris Hutchison is giving Zlatan the quote, "I got to be free, I got to be me."
Zlatan can go play for Matthew McConaughey in Austin.
Maybe take his shirt off after he scores a goal.
Okay, that was creepy.
Right on.
That creepy.
Matt Damon doing Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Weird.
Because it seems every single Matt Damon impression of Matthew McConaughey involves him taking his shirt off.
Okay.
I don't know if that's back to Dazed and Confused or not, but I think it is.
Don't know. Don't think so.
Yeah. Well, but that's the running gag where that's concerned. What are we doing tonight from 6 to 8?
Soccer over there at the Brewhouse Cafe in Little 5 Points. We'll talk a lot of Open Cup. We'll talk about what gets said at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground today. All the media is assembled for Frank de Boer and some players speaking to them. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what happened in England. We'll talk about what happened in Italy. And we'll talk about the collision course that is brewing in South America Boca and River Super Classico Copa Libertadores semifinal this time around. Looks like it's going to happen. We'll get into all of that and anything else that pops up unexpectedly this evening. 6 to 8, Brewhouse Cafe, Little 5 Points. Join us live or listen on the app on soccerdownhere.net or on Spreaker.
Trouble in Bolton, trouble at Bury. We'll get into that too.
All the things, we'll talk about them tonight. Thanks, everybody, for all of the Overreaction Monday conversation. We appreciate it. Thanks for tweeting at us throughout the show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you in a few hours for Soccer Over There. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.